Now we are live. Okay, hello. Welcome to the Supreme Cleveland Sports Show. It's the most awesome, most excellent sports show around. I am Brian Fraley, that handsome gentleman to my right, your left. No, switch that, reverse it. Is just one of the two. Anywho, my mind is in a thousand places today, but we are doing a special episode today because the Guardians made the postseason and caught everybody by surprise this year. So here we are with a special edition of the Supreme Cleveland Sports Show. Welcome. Thanks for doing this, James.
Well, thanks for having us. Pop-up show, little Guardian stuff. I mean, come on, who can't be excited for postseason baseball? Despite ridiculous blog posts you see about stuff that has nothing to do with the on-field product, and people living in the black and white world don't realize there's a lot of gray area nuance the way how things work. But you know what? The real people that like baseball have gotten past the name and the logo change, are excited for Guardians postseason baseball.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. Like when we first came up with the framework for this show that we're on right now, we figured it was just going to be a Brown show. You know, we weren't really anticipating the Cleveland Guardians to just run away with the division in September like they did. We kind of were talking during the weekend and we're like, we got to pop up and do a show about this. So here we are. And it just so happens that Aaron Judge did a thing yesterday. I guess he had his 60-second home run. So a lot of people are jumping on to Twitter and other places to declare Aaron Judge the new home run king. So we're going to go ahead and just start things right there. James, let's get your initial thoughts about this. Aaron Judge, is he the new home run king?
For the Yankees, for the American League. I mean, I wrote something about this morning on thisisbelieveland.com. Check it out. A little opinion piece. Barry Bonds is still the single-season home run king. Because last time I checked, he hit 73. Okay, you go to all of the record pages, it still says Barry Bonds 73. So it's Barry Bonds. Like Aaron Judge, phenomenal season, has accomplished historical. Again, nice little golf clap. All right, very historical season for Aaron Judge. Yankees all-time leader in home runs. American League all-time leader in home runs. There's just 6 seasons that happened in the National League that happen to be more than what he hit.
Right. And we're not here to diminish his accomplishment in any way. Like, he had a phenomenal season. Aaron Judge is quickly becoming the face of Major League Baseball. And MLB couldn't be happier with the fact that he is, involved in all of this discussion and whatnot. And yeah, he had a fantastic year, but I just think it's so short-sighted and unfair to just totally dismiss all of the history on the other side of things in the National League with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and, later Barry Bonds. And so I was right there with you. Everybody was going nuts last night when he hit 62. And, my initial thought was, well, let us know when he hits 74 now, because he's not my home run king. And I'm not here to, condone or approve of anything that happened during the steroid era, but it was what it was. Everybody was playing under the same conditions, and nobody else hit 73. So, it's a part of history. We got to talk about it. And I just think that Aaron Judge deserves his roses, but you don't have to give it to him in a way that just writes off what Bonds did and what Sosa did and what McGwire did, because the home run chase with McGwire and Sosa arguably saved baseball. Baseball
it really did. Baseball was dead. I mean, every single day I would come home from school, turn on SportsCenter because, the Cubs played at 1 or 2 or whatever, because they played day games pretty much exclusively, even still. And I'd be like, did Sosa hit a home run today?
Yeah. It was must-see.
In the morning, it was just like home run chase updates. Sosa's up to 60. McGuire's up. It's like, this is incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so fun to watch. It was badly needed in a time when baseball was definitely slipping. It definitely was not being viewed as America's pastime like it once was. And football was slowly but surely becoming king. And that really breathed new life into the sport. So, whether you agree with what they did or not, it's something that happened. It's an entire, decade plus of baseball that we have to acknowledge happened. So,
it's important to contextualize what was going on during that time when they played. At the time, they were not testing for steroids. Okay, that wasn't something that was. It was all just kind of like hush hush, look the other way. Okay, that's what was happening.
Right.
I saw a lot of people being like, "Oh, those guys took steroids, so their numbers don't count." Well, okay, everyone playing in the '70s took greenies. Okay,
Yeah.
back before the '50s, okay, only white people could play. So if you want to put a little asterisk next to those guys' numbers, do it for literally every other player ever. Okay, this is what happened. Okay, they played by the rules at the time. At the rules at the time, there was no steroid testing. Okay, and McGuire admitted he took steroids. Fine. You want to be like, oh my God, Mark McGuire took steroids. Well, okay, cool. Like, he still hit the home runs for one thing. Okay.
Right.
As much as Sosa's come off looking poorly in his post-playing career,
to say the least,
the interviews where he's just like, did you take steroids? I never tested positive. That's not what I asked. Did you take them? I never tested positive. It's like, okay,
right.
That's a non-denial denial, or you know what I mean. It's a denial. It's a non. Whatever. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And America has shown that, like, we're willing to forgive and move on when guys are honest and they hold themselves accountable for their past. I mean, look at a guy like A-Rod. He was one of the most universally hated baseball players. He kind of owned up to his part in everything and explained his side of things. And now he's, one of the most featured members in MLB media. And it's, we can move past these things if you own it, and that's kind of the problem everybody had with Sosa. Is like, he's dancing around it. Just say you did or say you didn't.
And, when it comes to Bonds, I know there's a whole thing that goes on with it. But again, what it comes down to is, did he or did he not genuinely test positive for it? Okay. Was there actual proof? Not speculation, not investigations that were murky at best.
Everything was circumstantial, so there was no hardcore evidence
proof that he tested positive. Again, circumstantial. The dude was a giant at the end of his career. Where he started his career, he was probably like the size of me. Okay,
yeah, and he was not a big guy at all.
And so, yeah, very, very likely he did. I used the term "enhanced" a lot in the article I wrote. Okay, because I'm not going to say he did or he didn't.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that
he was.
The other thing you have to take into account, too, is that everybody who was throwing the ball to these guys was juicing, too. Yeah. So, they're like, in a way, it almost makes their accomplishments, more impressive in some aspects of it when you look at just the way that, that extra strength affects the pitching side of things as well. So, yeah, you're either going to throw every single number out the window from that era, or you're going to have it and acknowledge that it happened and put an asterisk by it, don't put an asterisk by it. I don't really care. I just think it's important when we talk about baseball history that we talk about it holistically, and like you said, the stuff before the color barrier and all that, like, there's a great argument to be made that a lot of those records in the early 1900s shouldn't count. And we still look at them and they're still in the record books, and I think since we do that for some, we have to do it for all. We have to.
And one last thing about the whole steroid conversation, because I think what ultimately gets lost in everything is that people say, oh, he took steroids, he wouldn't hit that many home runs. Well, guys could take steroids and still be strikeout machines. Okay. Yeah. Look at Chris Davis on the Orioles. Okay.
Yeah.
That dude struck out all the time. You see all these guys that take steroids, but they still can't hit the ball at all. If you have terrible hand-eye coordination, you can't put bat to ball. Who cares? You could be freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger at peak Mr. Universe taking steroids, but like, if you can't connect with the ball, who cares?
And Bonds was a great hitter when he was small too. He was already a great hitter. He was always a great hitter before, he blew up and got bigger and the steroid allegations began. So, he's a guy that had the talent. It's not like he just started taking steroids and all of a sudden he's this great player. Like, no, he was already an MVP caliber player. So you have to take everything into account. And the other thing too is that, like, look at the way that they pitched around Bonds during that run that he was on. I mean, he got intentionally walked more.
I looked it up earlier today. I got to look it up again because the exact numbers are absurd for how many times he was, one, walked, and two, intentionally walked. Okay. He was walked in the year he hit 73. Okay, let's go with that. The year he hit 73, he was walked 177 times.
That's ridiculous. And how many walks did Judge put up this year? Just curious if you have that number. If you don't,
I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah, I'm just curious because it's a thing you have to take into account, and I don't want to speculate what happened last night, but that ball certainly looked like a meatball to me. I'm not saying that they gave him that home run, but they're not pitching around Judge the way they were pitching
Hey,
around Bonds during his run.
anything to stop the cut in on Saturdays of college football Aaron Judge pop up. Okay, so Aaron Judge walked 111 times this year. Okay, he was intentionally walked 19. When Bonds hit 73, he walked 177. It was intentionally walked 35. Okay,
Right.
want to hear something absolutely just bonkers? 2004, Barry Bonds hit 45 home runs. Pedestrian for Barry Bonds at this point.
For Barry, sure.
Okay. He was walked 232 times, 120 intentional.
That's insane. Just absolutely insane. And when you look at those numbers and you think about what he accomplished, it's still, whether he was juicing or not, those are just absolutely mind-blowing, bonkers numbers for one of the hardest things to do in all sports, and that's to hit a baseball at a professional level.
He actually walked 120 times. He still hit 45 bombs. That's insane.
Yeah, absolute insanity. And so, it was a different type of run that he was on than this one that Judge was on, where everybody in the world kind of has been on his side and supporting him. And sure, it's great. Like we said, it's a great accomplishment. He's the new Yankee leader, most storied franchise, arguably, in, the sport. So it's definitely significant, but, I'm just not one of the people that's okay with, just throwing out what Bonds and Sosa and McGwire did out the window. I just won't do that. So
one question I have for you, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's because he plays for the Yankees. Let's say Aaron Judge played for the Baltimore Orioles.
Ooh, yeah.
Would people be trying to be like knocking down all this other stuff, being like Judge is the new home run king if he's, hitting for the Baltimore Orioles? Because I don't.
Right.
Or if the Rockies, or even the Guardians, or the Pirates.
Sure. I agree 100%. This has a lot to do with the market that he's in and baseball wanting to push, certain narratives. And this one falls right into everything. It checks all the boxes. It's the Yankees, the most in-demand, talked about franchise. So, yeah, everything surrounding this was it was the perfect storm for the noise that surrounded it. But, yeah, if he was in Baltimore or somewhere else, I don't think we would have been having the cut-ins. I think they still would have said, sure, American League leader in home runs, but do we spend the last week or two watching every single at-bat on bated breath like we did? No, I don't think that happens.
Maybe they'll insert a highlight if he hits the home run, but we're not going to be watching at-bats of people not wanting to pitch to Aaron Judge or people pitching and him not hitting home runs.
Right, exactly.
If he's not playing for the Yankees, this ain't happening.
Yeah, and I remember those cut-ins that they did during the McGwire Sosa era, and it was like they were pitching around these guys. So, they're not giving them anything to hit during those days. And you look at the stuff that they were giving Judge, it's like everybody, I don't know. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but it looked a lot like that ball that was served up to him last night was a gift. It's the end of the season. Let's see if he can hit this one out. You still got to hit it. So, he still did his job, but still that pitch, I don't know if that pitch was thrown to McGwire or Sosa during that era like it was last night. So,
again, anything to stop the constant Judge watch. I know this is going to, again, have more conversations about Aaron Judge and the Yankees until the playoffs start on Friday. But, again, MVP discussions, John Heyman deciding that there's a West Coast bias because that's a thing. That's the most absurd thing.
Here's the other. No, I was just going to say the convenient thing about this whole thing is it completely overshadows the absolutely epic collapse that the New York Yankees had during the regular season in terms of being a team that looked like they were going to win potentially 120 games to a team that had a really rough go of it after the All-Star break. They want the Yankees to be the Yankees. They want them to be this unbeatable machine because it helps their numbers with the viewership and whatnot.
Oh, it does.
And so I think that caused them to hype this Aaron Judge thing up even more because it's like, let's not talk about how beatable this Yankees team is. Let's just talk about how good Aaron Judge is. He's the new home run king. The Yankees are rolling into the postseason, with a historic achievement, on their backs. Like it's obviously a lot of this has to do with the team.
Oh, it does. And you look, across town, a similar thing happened to the Mets, and the Mets did have a little bit of a collapse. They're still in the postseason, so that matters for them.
That does
They
matter.
didn't miss the postseason like some of their other epic collapses 15 years ago, and that's key. But you look how they recovered; it's entirely different.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. If this wasn't New York, it would be a different media circus surrounding the achievement completely. But yeah, we wanted to definitely touch on that because obviously it's the biggest news in all of sports today. But let's talk about the Guardians, man, because we had another show that we did before this one, and we previewed the season, and I don't remember the number you threw out there, but I remember my number because it was an easy one to remember. I had them at 72 and 90. That was the number I gave them.
I was in that 74-76 win prediction. I'm glad to be wrong. Okay.
Same here. I've never been happier.
Far exceeded both of our expectations. It was just, we looked at it, realized there's going to be a lot of transition.
Yeah.
Seeing the way they've handled transition before, they hold on to guys a little bit too long. And then by the time they move guys, it's mid-August. Right. They were aggressive this year when it came to actually moving on from guys. They moved on from Bobby Bradley, still a free agent, by the way.
Right.
They moved on from Franmil Reyes. Bradley Zimmer gone. They churn these guys out and say, okay, we've seen enough. We're done. They got rid of Oscar Mercado and then brought him back, and he's somewhere in an organization now. But like you see them moving on from guys. All right, it's time to get the young guys a chance to play, and they did. We didn't get another year of Cesar Hernandez at second base, and God knows who at first. They're like, okay, let the young kids play, let them do their thing.
Right.
And it paid off.
Yeah, and that's part of what made this such an unpredictable run for them to go on is nobody knew what you were going to get out of Stephen Kwan this year. And I mean, shoot, I could even argue that we didn't really know what we were going to get from Andres Gimenez this year.
We didn't.
So, there's some guys that really overperformed, anything that anybody could have expected. And that's the reason that they're such a surprise team and that there's so much excitement going into this postseason because they were the youngest team in baseball. They did have all of these red flags going into the season about, things that should concern you. And it looked like the White Sox were going to be the team to beat in the division. But, that's not how things shook out. And so here we are, the youngest team in baseball. The average age of the Guardians it's not just the youngest team in MLB. It's actually younger than the average age of a AAA team.
That's insane. Okay?
It's insane. Yeah.
It's
the average
insane.
Yeah.
Such a young team. And again, they got criticized for the young team. They got criticized for their lack of spending. The only real free agent they signed was Luke Maile. Okay. That was pretty much it. Sandy Leon came back, I think, on 2 separate times. Might have been just one. But he was back, okay. It was just like, okay, come on, let's do something here. They didn't do anything. They stuck with their guys, and it's paid off. It
has paid off big time. And a lot of these guys, when they were on Kwan started off real hot. It was like this isn't sustainable, And then Gimenez got real hot, and it was this isn't sustainable. But those two guys, here we are. We've got one game left, and they're both hovering right around that 300 mark. That's crazy. And then, not only that, but talking about that 300 mark, Oscar Gonzalez is coming in right at 293. So another rookie on the roster who has just absolutely overperformed expectations. And so here we are. Never been happier to be wrong with a prediction in my life than I was about this Guardians team. But we won't be wrong next year about them. I can guarantee you that, now that we know.
Let's hope not.
Right. Let's hope not, because we missed it by quite a big number there.
Yeah, we did. I mean, you look at this team. I don't think anyone really expected this. They're the first youngest team in baseball to win their division since the '86 Mets. Okay,
that's crazy.
No other team has done it since the '86 Mets. 2 teams that are the youngest team to win their division have won the World Series out of the 6 or 7.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. Looking at this, the bracket and the way that it's structured now that everything is kind of settled, do the Guardians have the most winnable path to the World Series in the entire postseason? Because I'm looking at the other, side of the bracket and looking at the, Houston down there. Because, let's be honest, the Yankees have been unpredictable this year. When they're hot, they're unbeatable, but when they're not, they look really, really bad.
Mhm.
And I would much rather have them being our potential next opponent over the Houston Astros. And
I would
then
agree.
on the other side of things too, the Dodgers are just phenomenal, and the other, I don't have it pulled up right now, but
It's Phillies, Cardinals, and Braves are the other three.
there you go. So really tough side to come out of there too. So to me, like the Guardians, they landed in the right spot. Like I think they do have a very winnable path to the World Series. I'm not saying they're going to get there, but the draw shook out about as good as it could have.
Yeah, that's where I'm at because you look at you could really just it's toss ups for every other one. You really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You look at like okay if the Mets win, Mets Dodgers is going to be a very entertaining series. Both teams are very good. They both have the pitching, but if the Padres make it out and go against the Dodgers, Padres are just frisky enough even without Fernando Tatis to give the Dodgers a little bit of a test. It's not necessarily an easy path for the Dodgers out of there. Same goes for Phillies and Cardinals. I mean, those teams are just, Phillies, Braves, that'd be an electric NL East, playoff series. But, Cardinals are just always there. They're always there. They got some of that old man one last run magic going on with, Yachty and Albert Pujols.
They have a little bit of a team of destiny vibe to them.
Mm-hmm.
They really do feel like a team that could go on a run here. They surprised a lot of people this year as well. I mean, not us as much because the Cardinals are always the Cardinals until they're not.
And that division stunk.
And that division was
Central.
Really bad.
I know the AL Central gets a lot of heat for like stinking. The NL Central was trash this year. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're in a very similar boat that we're in. So yeah, it's a winnable path for us, and the other teams in other positions seem like they have a much difficult road. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way that things shook out. I'd rather play Tampa than Seattle. That's for sure. I don't know where you stand with that.
See, I'm weird on that. I don't know where I fall on that because like I know Seattle's played well, but I'm still like having a tough time believing Seattle's for real. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they've been very impressive. Okay.
Yeah.
They've given the Guardians a tough time. This is true. But at the same time, like, are they real? Is this true? Is this for real?
And everything depends upon their rookie and how he plays in this postseason too. And when you're putting that much on the shoulders of one young player, or Wander Franco, so second year, whatever, still, it's a lot to put on one man's shoulders on either side of things. So Tampa has one, Seattle has one. It's like, and then the Guardians have one, and Stephen Kwan. So it's like all three of these teams have that one player that you don't know what you're going to get out of them this postseason yet.
I mean, the thing with Tampa is that Tampa's always going to just be Tampa. Okay, they're going to have just arm after arm coming out of that bullpen. They're going to have pitching as deep as anyone. Okay, and they're going to have someone to match up precisely with whoever you get out of your dugout to come pinch hit late in the game, or whoever you got in a clutch situation. They're going to have some sort of answer.
Yeah. Okay. Some guys we're familiar with too. They've got the Klubak there in Tampa Bay. We're real familiar with him. So yeah, it's I understand what you're saying. The Seattle, we really don't know. They're kind of an anomaly for the moment. Whereas Tampa does have some names in there that have been around for a while and have shown that they can produce in big moments. So yeah, I guess I do see that side of it. I don't really want to play either one of them. They're both dangerous teams in my eyes. But that's part of the fun of expanding the postseason is you have these teams that like they could do something or they could stink. It could go either way.
You look at what first of all, you look at the Rays lineup and you see several Guardians or former Cleveland baseball players sprinkled in the mix. Okay. Francisco Mejia, Yandy Diaz, Harold Ramirez. It's just like,
all over the roster.
It's kind of funny when you look at it like from that perspective. Like look at all these former, Kluber. Kluber's one of their starting pitchers.
Yeah,
that's another guy, and you don't know what exactly they're going to get out of him, but it seems like he's been productive. But I don't think he was going to be like that ultra Tampa version of Corey Kluber. I think a lot of people were expecting because I think once he signed, it's like, oh crap. They're just going to use him in some ridiculous way, and he's going to discover some new pitch he's never used before.
Right.
Cy Young. He's been good. He's been good. Okay, but he's not like Cleveland Clover. I mean,
No, he's turned more into just like a reliable veteran guy. You know, you
though.
really know what you're going to get from him. And yeah, he's in a good place. I feel like for the stage of his career that he is in. And yeah, I still think he has enough in that arm that he can come out and really throw a gem in the postseason. So you got to look out for a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, he started 31 games for them. And that takes a lot of pressure off the rest of their arms and, the way they approach pitching, opener, bullpen, whatever way they decide to go about it. I mean, you look at all the guys that started games, so they're not all of them are starters.
Right.
So.
Yeah, he leads the team with the 31 starts. Rasmussen right behind him with 28, and McClanahan with 28. Springs with 25, but after those four, you've got guys sprinkled with starts all the way down. I mean, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, there's like 12 other names that started a game there for them.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just they got whatever they got, they're going to throw at you, and that's the way that you got to look at it. That's what you got to keep in mind, is that they're going to give you whatever they got. They're going to keep going. They're going to empty that clip that is. Pitchers that they have.
Yeah. And some of these guys that they put in there, it's not a lot of names that people have heard of, but when you look at their numbers, like they perform pretty well. There's a couple guys mixed in there that have an 8.1 ERA, but I mean, there's guys 2.25, 3.8, like, that hover right in that area. That's like good for a starting pitcher. So they get a lot out of these guys that they put in there. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason why, we see them in the postseason is because of that. But how sustainable is that once the postseason starts? Are some of those guys that, you need to step in when other guys are down, maybe going to be able to step up and do it on the big stage the way that they do in the regular season? Because we know that postseason baseball it's a complete different energy level than regular season baseball. It's almost an entirely different game. And just because a team does something in the regular season does not make postseason success, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and that's true. And you look at the two managers. I for the most part, Terry Francona has made a lot of good decisions in his postseason career. He's made a couple blunders. It happens, but Kevin Cash is not necessarily coming off of a hot streak of good decision making in the postseason. Okay,
right, exactly. Yeah, I mean. Tito, I can't be happy. Honestly, personally, I couldn't be happier with the guy. But yeah, we've had moments this year where we would text with each other like, what are we doing here? But through it all, though, he's been such a good leader of men in the way that like that team believes in each other and they believe in their manager. Like, you don't always hear guys in the like post-game press conferences talking about the manager the way that the Guardians players do. Like everybody always says, we got a guy in Terry that we believe in, and he's got a formula that is winnable for us. And we're going to stick with that formula, and we're going to keep riding it until the wheels fall off. And here we are. They wrote it to one of the best Septembers that any team has had in recent memory. So there's a lot of things to be excited about. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why the Guardians could really surprise some people and potentially match up with the Yankees in the next round and, make things interesting. I don't think that it's a complete wash one way or the other. Like I still think that the Guardians have a scrappy enough team that they can take pretty much anyone to 7 games in this American League, bracket.
You look at the way that they win games. You look at the way that the team's constructed. It's different. Okay, it's not going to be a team that's going to hit a ton of home runs. I mean, the Rays are the same way too. I mean, both teams are towards the bottom of the home run totals. If you click on the sortable home run stack, okay,
right.
So they're not exactly going to wow you with their home runs. I mean, the Rays home run leaders have 20, and that's Isaac Paredes and Randy Rosarena. Okay.
Right.
And after that, it drops to 10.
Yeah. Big drop after that.
10 from G-Man Choi. It's not like they got slugger after slugger after slugger. That's the team you might face in the next round if you advance. It's the team with full sluggers, But, you look at this team, it's just about getting your outs, making sure that you take care of business. You don't need to dazzle, but it's about limiting first to third. It's about limiting stolen bases. It's about, making the team work just a little bit more. Don't let them take advantage of you getting lazy on a play or sloppy. It's about playing clean. And
Yeah, playing clean is essential, especially with these shortened series. This is a very condensed series with them. Like you don't have a game to mess up and then write off. You got every game is a must-win game when the series is so small like this. So yeah, it's about playing clean and really paying attention to the details, because it could be the little things that win you a game and end up moving you on to the next series against the Yankees. So yeah, I'm glad that we're here, and I'm excited that we're here, but it does make you nervous. A 3-game series makes you really nervous because anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. Your best pitcher could go out there and have a bad day, and then boom, you're in an 0-1 hole and you got to win your next 2 games. Not easy for anybody to do. Not easy for anybody to do.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the way the Guardians played the Rays this season. They've won 4 out of the 6 against Tampa. Okay.
Yeah.
The largest margin of victory was 3 runs between the 2 teams. Everything else is 2 or 1.
Yeah.
And so a lot of close games. Neither team was, filling up the stat sheet. The most runs scored in the game was 6.
Right.
Not like we had any double-digit run scoring games.
Yeah. And this is an interesting series too, because we play a similar brand of ball. We're not a power hitting team. They're not a power hitting team. They're even more spread out in terms of talent. Like, we've got some star players on our team that have some good WAR numbers, whereas their WAR leader, I just had it pulled up, Yandy Diaz with a 3.4, which is good. I'm not saying that's terrible, but that's the best they have to offer, Whereas you look at the Guardians, we've got Andres Gimenez, 7.2, Jose Ramirez, 5.6, Steven Kwan, 5.5, which is insane to say.
Yeah.
What a rookie season for him.
Doesn't Miles Straw have a stupid high WAR for being basically useless at the plate this entire year?
Yeah, very high for being useless at the plate. I got him at 2.6.
That's amazing considering he hit 220 this year. The fact he's actually at 220 is also amazing considering he was like below 190 for a good portion of the season.
He did get hot and clean. He cleaned some things up with his swing and went on a little bit of a run there to dig himself out of a hole. But for a while, it was looking like he wasn't even going to bat 200. So yeah, that's a guy that you don't really know what you're going to get moving forward. But yeah, very impressive. It just goes to show how valuable he is in the outfield defensively.
Yes, yeah.
So.
And, you look at just the way that the Rays are going to attack you. I guess it's just going to be this kind of group effort. Again, they have 2 guys that have had 20 home runs this year, but after that, it drops off. I mean, and a lot of their production comes from doubles. They're one of the better doubles teams in baseball. Meanwhile, the Guardians are one of the better triples teams in baseball. So you trade one for the other.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight series, and I think small ball is going to be crucial. I think we'll be seeing, just the little things, the bunts, the sac flies, the hit and runs. I expect both teams to be pulling out all the tricks in this series because, to be honest, that's what their brand is, and I don't expect either one of us to deviate from that brand of baseball. So it's going to be a fun series. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up and cover some business side of things before we leave? We just wanted to do a quick pop-up show before the series. So
yeah, I guess, you had a hope for some of the guys in the Guardians that, hit some power. I do think that, some of the guys later in the season did start to get a little power stroke going. You look at guys like Oscar Gonzalez, Josh Naylor, they had some pretty good runs right at the end. Jose Ramirez, he's got to keep doing his thing. And, this is it's going to be about preventing the Rays from taking advantage of any mistakes that you make. I said this earlier, but at the same time, taking advantage of any mistakes that the Rays make. Okay.
Yep.
It's going to be about, like you said, small ball, going first to third, stealing bases, sacrifice hits, making the right decision, taking the extra base when you can, extending a long single into a double if you're fast enough. Looking in Jose Ramirez's direction here,
right.
So it's going to be about those type of things. It's going to be about just the pitching staff doing what they have done for the most part of the season, and that's keeping the other team off the scoreboard.
Yeah, I agree. I say we keep doing these pop-up shows as long as the Guardians stay in the postseason. So make sure you like and subscribe to our videos and our channels so that when we're going to pop up and do another video. We'll keep you guys clued in on this Guardians postseason run. We'll be back tomorrow to do our normal Browns show.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be, covering the game in Atlanta and going over next week's matchup as well. So we will see you guys tomorrow at noon for that. And then moving forward, things are kind of, growing and changing in both of our lives. So we can't really commit to a time for the show right now. So just, stay tuned to both of our Twitter pages and whatnot. And we'll do our best to clue you guys in about when we're going to go live so you can join us and become part of the show. But that's all I have for this week. Unless you got anything else, James, I will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right, guys.